Joining us now, head coach for the LSU Baseball team, Coach Jay Johnson. Coach, welcome back to the show. Congratulations on another great weekend. Hey, apparently y'all can hit homers. I know a lot of people were worried about that 2 weeks ago. Maybe not the baseball connoisseurs who understand that, doubles ends up turning into homers. It's amazing what you can do. It's got to be nice to see. I know that you're a doubles and walks guy and you want to put pressure on the defense. It's got to be nice to see the guys leave the ballpark and get to jog around the bases a few times over the weekend.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely have said when I used to coach third base, I never didn't give anybody a high five when they hit a homer,
Yeah. That would not be very nice of you if you did that.
Hate to see that one leave.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't be popular. It was good showing our offense. We see these guys all the time and have a little better idea of what they really are. There's some factors that go into driving the ball and hitting it with power, and it's never really been a concern with mine. I think if anything, I like the amount of runs that we've scored without needing a home run, or a bunch of home runs. And so just want to be able to win any type of game, big field, small field, wind blowing in, wind blowing out, day game, night game, all matters. And it was good to see the guys get some good swings this weekend.
Coach, you look at the scores of the weekend, and I know the last game you gave up 3 runs in the eighth, between the 8th and the ninth inning. But before that, you had only given up 2 runs that game. You gave up 2 runs the game before, or really 2 runs all 3 games up until those last 3 innings. It felt like top to bottom, pitching staff, offensively, it felt like it was one of the most complete performances, at least in my opinion, watching the game. Guys came in, did their job. You had a lot of guys, driving the balls out of the ballpark, but also getting on base, drawing walks, having competitive at-bats. Do you feel that way, or do you feel like, obviously there's always things to work on, but do you feel like it was a, pretty complete weekend moving into the SEC?
Yeah, I think, to this point in the schedule, we've probably handled it just about as good as you can. And, from a result standpoint, obviously we'd love to have 0 losses instead of 1 loss, but I think our team used that loss very well. I think we've improved a ton in the past 2 weeks, and I think that was good. Relative to the play this weekend, we did get really good starting pitching. Cade was excellent, had a bunch of strikeouts, piled up a bunch of strikeouts on Friday. Anthony didn't have a very good first 5 hitters of Saturday, but after that, it was complete domination. I think maybe there was one more base runner after the 6th hitter of the game, for 7 innings with him. And, he's the first pitcher on the staff this year to complete 7 innings, which was great. Turn that one over to Zack Cowan, who's monster out of the bullpen for us. Pitched great again. And then, I thought Chase did a good job yesterday. I mean, he's really difficult to score off of when there's no free bases involved. And he got himself a little bit of trouble in the 3rd and, wiggled out of it and was really good. And then, the relievers did their job and we continued to score. And, until the end of yesterday's game, played good defense again. And it was a good weekend, but now we're excited about this week and moving forward.
Coach, I want to ask you about a guy that you obviously got a chance to see a little bit last year and obviously is on the team this year. So through the fall and obviously through the spring so far, what is it that you saw in Zack Cowan? Because your ability to put as much trust as you put in him early this year, and for him to obviously just throw the ball the way that he has and where he's going to go through the season, what is it that you saw in him so early that's kind of rang true so far for you?
Well, it's kind of an interesting recruiting story. So we played Wofford in the first game of the NCAA tournament last year, and we prepare really hard. And I look at the opposing starting pitching really hard, and we thought we were going to face him, other than he threw 2 games in their conference tournament and threw a combined 350 pitches over the course of 4 days. And so they gave him 1 extra day. So we didn't face him, but I was very familiar with him. And then the next day he threw 6 shutout innings in the losers bracket game after we had won. And so obviously I knew his name. And then obviously we're, looking at the portal every day. That's just the way that it is in the summer. And his name popped up, and I was like, no way. Like, there's no way that guy's leaving. But I got his number really quick. Normally we go through like this full vetting process of like all kind of analytical stuff and where do they fit kind of in our model. And I was like, we're getting this guy. Like, there's going to be no discussion. Like, I want this pitcher because of his ability to throw strikes, to compete. I think he had like 126 innings last year that were all really consistent, really successful. And, we had just, had 8 pitchers drafted or something like that. So we had a lot of innings to replace, and just felt like Zack could be a big part of that. And then getting him here, he's got the great pitchability, throws all his pitches for strikes. Coach Yeski's done a really good job of advancing some of that. And then the guy's just really polished on the mound. It's a ton of strikes. It's tough to plan against. He could throw it wherever he wants, when he wants. He changes speeds, obviously. And he's a killer, on the inside, which is important in those key moments in the game. And so he's been very valuable, for us, and I'm really glad he's at LSU.
It feels like you have a stable of pitchers that are, in the age of velocity and, hey, everybody throws hard and everybody's got this hard stuff. He is kind of a old school type of pitcher. I'm not saying he doesn't throw hard, right? Because he can run it up there, but he kind of brings a different dynamic, at least in my opinion, with the pitching staff, being able to move the ball around, mix and match, understands how to change eye level, and understands how to compete that way. Is that something that intrigued you and kind of gives you a little bit of a different feel on the mound compared to the other guys that you have?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely a different look, but even just by saying that, I think that's just a disservice to how good a pitcher he is. He's good standing on his own, and if we needed him to start, we'll be fine, with that. I just think because of the experience that he's had, his ability just to know how to get people out and execute what he needs to, I think he fits really good where we've put him in, which has essentially been the most important parts of the game or the weekend or the series or whatever. And, he's done a really nice job, with each of those phases. And, he had such a workload last year. The workload that we've given him has kind of been, easy for him. Yeah. It's like the other day, like 2 innings, he punched out 5 in 2 innings. And it's 31 pitches, and if I really needed him on Sunday, we probably could have used him on Sunday. Like, that just kind of tells you, he's just one of those guys that's competitive, wants the ball, wants to be in the game, and has weapons, and has been very valuable part of our team and our pitching staff so far.
Coach, I want to bring up a guy because early in the year, especially for a young hitter, but early in the year, it's really hard for young hitters to get a lot of opportunities, but seemingly every time you've thrown this guy out there, I'm not saying it's been a hit, but it's been very loud contact.
He knows what you're going to say.
It's to a point now where it's being expected by his teammates, and I almost kind of think it's being expected by the other team. Can you just talk about what it is that John Peterson's been able to do? I mean, Peterson's been able to do so well so early in his career.
Yeah, he's a hitter, man. I think I put a lot of stock into where guys come from, like, because the environment that they come from will often determine how successful they could be earlier in their career. Because you guys, I'm sure, had guys that came in with you that had talent, but it's an adjustment because this is such a big jump. But, obviously, as we saw with Josh, John, their dad, Bill, is an awesome hitting coach. And then he played at West Monroe, one of the best programs in the state, and he's been around, what LSU baseball is here these last few years. So he's been around our team. He's one of the first guys we committed once I got here, committed as a sophomore, and, has been at a billion games. And I don't think he's been overwhelmed by anything. And then when you just start digging into the player, he's confident. He's aggressive. He's focused. He's got a short swing. He's definitely got power. He hit the ball over the scoreboard the other night, but he doesn't have to sell out to get to that, which also makes him really hard to pitch to. And he's a really good 2-strike hitter. I think he has 4 or 5 hits in these pinch hit opportunities. And I want to say all but one of them have come with 2 strikes. And, I have really high hopes for him, in terms of not just helping this team, but, being a real hitter here, during his 3 or 4 years, whatever he's going to be here.
Coach, I know a lot of people can't really attest to this, but pinch hitting coming off the bench in the games, that is hard to do. And to be able to come off the bench cold and be able to put at-bats after at-bat after at-bat and be able to barrel balls up, that's extremely impressive, and not even for a freshman, just for anybody. And the fact that he is a freshman just attests to how good he is as a hitter.
Let him run the bases. I want to see those wheels get going.
I did on Tuesday, and Milo hit a double, and he couldn't score from first. So then, no, I'm just kidding. He's going to be really good. And this whole thing, also really comes down to makeup, and character, and he's got that. And there's no hey, why am I not playing any of that? They all want to play, obviously. They all want to start, and his time will come here. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But right now, he's been ready to help us win when we've asked him to do that. And you're right, that's not an easy thing to do for anybody on our team, because they show up here as the 1-hole, 2-hole, 3-hole, or 4-hole on every team that they've ever played on. So credit to John, and again, it just kind of goes to that character and that makeup that I'm talking about.
You talk about character and makeup and guys buying in. It feels like a lot of guys on the team are buying into that role, right? Ethan Fry is getting his opportunities, and he's making the most of his opportunities. You're platooning in third base right now with Braswell and Tanner Reeves, and they're both doing really well. And you have, the outfield, the guys that you can just throw out there time after time in the outfield. That's a hard role to be in, where it says, hey, you don't know if you're going to play, but when you play, you got to be ready. And it seems like everybody, whenever you give them the opportunity, is ready to play. And that's, something that's really hard to do. That's credit to you for getting these guys to buy in, credit to them for buying in. Has there been anything that you learned from last year going into this year as to how to maybe relate to these guys or get them to buy in more, or is it just kind of a makeup between the guys you have on the roster right now?
Well, I think there's a couple things I would say is we have way more depth. We didn't have the right kind of depth last year. And part of that was a little bit timing, because it really the 7 of the top 8 guys from the national championship team moved on. Right. You know what I mean? And so there's an experience component that we were just lacking a little bit. It took a little time, for some guys to adjust to, playing at LSU or playing in the SEC. But we were also just too one-dimensional, way too right-handed at the plate, and way too, power with having to sell out to power and not really being good hitters. Now, I say that, and we did average close to 7 runs a game, but for me, just the bar is really high of what good offensive baseball is. So I like that, it doesn't matter if a right-hander or left-hander is on the mound. I think we're hitting 380 against left-hand pitching, so far through the season as a team. So we're not pigeonholed into a difficult matchup. And then I think there's a plus side of this for the players is there's 15 guys that have to be ready to play every game. I told them before the season, we will win a 2-run game at some point where we use 15 position players. And that's kind of abnormal. And I think it happened on Tuesday night, actually. We used 15 players. We won 11-9. And some guys that came off the bench, like John, he walked in that inning that we took the lead. I think it was the bottom of the 8th, that really contributed to that. And yeah, sure, some guys could do some more, but they're on a really good team, a really good offensive team, and they know they have to be ready when they're called upon to do their job. And they've been good at that so far. And it'll obviously get tougher, as we're going forward. Really good opponent tomorrow night, and then obviously into league play. But I think I like where their headspace is at, in terms of being ready to handle those challenges that lie ahead.
Coach, I would imagine the message doesn't really change in terms of starting pitching and obviously guys coming out of the pen or that have come out of the pen so far. But less than 20 walks and almost 70 innings of pitching from the guys that have started for you on the weekend. Chase Shores, as we know it right now, is the one guy that consistently goes up there with a very high-end octane fastball, right? And the other guys have very good arms, but we're not sitting here watching the gun get completely lit up. I only say that because do you think the way that group of guys has pitched so far has been basically an example to kind of go out there and show these other guys that there are ways of getting outs without trying to be so perfect and literally just pounding the zone and letting your stuff work?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think that's really well said. I think, in reference to Chase, like he does have all that ability, and the fastball really jumps out at you. I think the first one yesterday was 99.
Right.
He had like strep throat too, so like that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But that'll grab your attention. But what I like about him is, he can give up some hits, but because he pounds his own, he doesn't walk a lot of people, and he doesn't I think he's given up one extra base hit on the season, and so. You're talking about trying to piece together 3 singles against a guy that has that caliber of fastball to score 1 run. Like he's hasn't been perfect, but he's done a great job of like minimizing damage. And we're gonna score over the course of the game. And his job is to get us keep us in the game and put us in position to win later in the game. And he leaves the game 5-2, 5 innings, left some guys out there, which was great. And the offense, pops a 6-run 6th inning, and it's, a relatively comfortable win. So he's done a really good job. And I said this earlier, I only anticipate him getting better as the year goes. Anthony you can't pitch any better than he did after the 5th hitter of the game. And, we knew what we were getting in terms of pitchability, with him. And, now that the schedule is going to settle into 4-game weeks, that's going to be really big because, those guys that, their stuff's going to play up a little bit more, or maybe you're using a guy only once a week or 2 small shots, for a week. That's going to be really, really helpful for a lot of guys on our staff.
Continuing on the pitching front, Coach, we had Kate Anderson come out with a quote where we talked about having Coach Yetsky and how big that was for him to come back. For you and your perspective, this is the first time I believe you've had a second-year pitching coach when you've been at LSU. How big has that transition been from having guys that have played underneath him for at least 1 year, now to have him again under a second year and continue the development of the program, like pitching style, all of those things where they actually are familiar with their coach?
Well, I think it helps. I think they know what to expect, but, let's be honest. We have so many new pitchers that most of them are in their first year. I think, you use the example of Cade, and I think it's helped Cade tremendously. He's obviously added to his pitch repertoire. He's an elite pitcher, but he's like totally put together as a person. So a guy like that really can take all the value that Coach Yetsky brings, which is a ton, because when you talk about game planning, pitch calling, setting up the week, knowing what to do, adjusting from one start to the next. He's the best. He's the best that I've ever had at that. So I think it's really helped Cade. And then because Cade is such a good leader of the players, of the pitchers, that those guys kind of follow what he's doing. And then it has like a really big impact. But, where I get excited is, you look at William Schmidt, you look at Kason Evans, you look at Maverick Rizzi, you look at Cooper Williams. These guys are going to be together for a few years, under the same type of pitching format, with Coach Yetsky as the pitching coach, with Jamie Tutko as our director of analytics, who makes a massive contribution in a lot of ways. Chris Martin is the strength coach. Isaac Trujillo is the trainer. They understand, when I come out to the mound, this is why I'm coming out to the mound to talk to them. I'm really excited about that. And it's been a good deal to have that. And then it's not only just, the second year at LSU, this is now our 4th year of coaching together. Right. And that helps. It helps me a ton.
Who sleeps less?
I would give the low sleep count on our staff to Josh Jordan, our recruiting coordinator. I'm not sure how he does it, but, I'm going to work my 17 or 18 hours, but I'm gonna close my eyes the other 6 or 7. I'm still not very good after the bad loss, to be honest with you. But other than that,
you in the mood.
Yeah, Josh Jordan. Josh Jordan is probably the low sleep count guy on the coaching staff.
Milazzo was on our show on Friday, and he was talking about, he was praising Josh Jordan, saying he's the best catching guy he's been around. And I'm glad you brought him up because I do want to talk a little bit about the catching side of things, right? Obviously, you have two guys that are new at LSU, one guy new in college. How are you feeling that the progression of the catchers has been? You know, obviously, people look at the game midweek last week, and they want to jump all over Cade Arrambide. Obviously, you know, there's a couple of different reasons why those things happen, but I think for me, in the long run for him, that's a good thing. He'll get better from that. How has the progression of the catching position been, and are you happy with where they're heading?
Yeah, for sure. I think they have a huge impact on the game. You know, and start with Luis Hernandez. He's done a great job for us. He's done a great job receiving, great job blocking. We haven't been run on at all, you know, largely because of how he throws the baseball as well. And then the pitcher's doing a good job holding the ball, picking, and being quick to the plate. So Luis has done a great job. You know, reference to Cade, I mean, he's one of the best high school catchers that actually showed up in college. And he had a tough night the other night on Tuesday. Some of the pitching honestly contributed to that as well. But we talked about it, you know, after the game, and we really wanted to use that game to advance him as a player. And he did that. We put him back in the game on Friday night. He was flawless, and he caught great yesterday for 6 innings. So I think that experience or that game will be a real positive. And if you look at him, it's hard not to like what you see. I mean, he's hit the ball really hard. Like, he's had a lot of, you know, bad luck. He lined out to left, and he lined out straightaway center on a very windy day at the ball got to the warning track. He's taken some walks, had a huge RBI in that game against Nebraska and Frisco. So he's done a great job offensively. I thought he caught well on Friday night after we took Luis out of the game, and I thought he caught great for 6 innings with Chase yesterday.
Coach, I actually, you talked about this a little bit earlier during the year. I just want to know if they're on par with what you thought you were going to get, a little bit ahead of it, but you're currently sitting at, I think, fourth best in terms of errors, if you will, defensively as a team. Where are they right now? Do you expect better? Do you expect to kind of stay the same? Like, what do you expect right now? Because, I mean, this is actually really good. We like what we're seeing with it. I just want to know.
No, I think we have way more athleticism, way more athletic players, and that should make you a better defensive team. It has. We made one in the 8th inning, and we made one in the 9th inning yesterday, which annoyed me a little bit. But outside of that, it's been pretty good. And, you know, we had, in my opinion, Tuesday night, which, you know, we really had a bad start to that game. We had a bad first inning defensively. And then Sunday, with the game well in hand, you know, I guess guys a little bit out of position, which for me, that's no excuse, and made a couple errors, you know, yesterday. But other than that, it's been about as good as you could hope for. And they're playing very confidently. And I think the pitchers are throwing strikes with confidence, knowing that the plays are going to get made behind them. You know, what I would point out, you can't play better shortstop than Stephen Milam has to this point in time. And, you know, he obviously gets a lot of praise for his offense, as he should, but he has played a phenomenal shortstop so far.
Not a lot of questions about his arm strength after that throw from left field to gun somebody down in the 9th, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I don't know.
Wait, Coach, I do have one more for you. There's been, to the layman, can you explain to me what releasing the barrel means? There's been some conjecture on Twitter about what this means, and Bear Jones doesn't release the barrel. And so I was just wondering, from your perspective, if he does or not.
Well, I think Jamie came in yesterday and told me a stat. So this has been a pretty historic program with some pretty significant players and hitters, and he currently sits 4th in program history in OPS, which is on base plus slugging percentage, and that seems good to me.
Yep.
And the other thing about that is he's a better hitter today than he's ever been, and it's okay for guys to get better through their career. And I don't know that anybody's actually done that better than Jared. And I talk about this all the time, and I'm excited for him, and it's obviously makes a huge impact for our team. But it's obvious the power jumps off the page. It's what people talk about. But his plate discipline is exceptional now, and his contact on balls in the strike zone is exceptional. And of that contact, it's really quality. I think maybe not this week, which was a very good week for him, but the week before, he hit like 10 balls over 110 miles an hour, and I've never even heard of that before. I've never heard of that before.
Coach, you ever heard of somebody hitting the ball 110 miles an hour without releasing the barrel? Is that a thing?
Yeah, I've never even used that term in my life.
Thank you. I was waiting for you to say that. Thank you so much, because I was confused. This conversation, I got real confused as to what was actually being said. So I appreciate you backing us up on that. I think he releases the barrel, whatever that means, just fine. Coach, we appreciate you. I know y'all got a game tomorrow. We look forward to watching y'all tomorrow. We look forward to watching y'all this weekend, obviously, as SEC play starts. We look forward to having you on the show throughout the course of the year and continue to have our nice little baseball banter back and forth. So we appreciate you always taking the time, and good luck the rest of the week.
All right, guys. Have a great night.
All right.